Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to share the speaker portion of our Connections Over Coffee gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. Ellen Koronet is speaking on Let's Play with Archetypes. LNK is a social scientist, a creativity facilitator, corporate strategist, and marketing methodologist with decades of experience designing ways to bypass habitual thinking. Ellen's systems and tools facilitate the collection of opinions that explain and predict behavior, all while having game-filled fun. And you can reach her at lnkcreative.com, which is also in the text of this video. Ellen, thank you for being here. You're on.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and do one of my little presentations as I often do. So here we are at On Purpose Woman Global Community. And if you haven't already joined at all any of the free meetings, come on in. They are so interesting and exciting, and you're going to make great connections. So today we're going to play with archetypes. And let's get the screen moving. So the ancient Greek meaning of archetype, I don't know if you knew this, because I didn't know this until I started doing research on it, is actually original pattern. And archetypes are really just those symbols and things that sort of organize our world into relatable little bits and bytes, right? So the original patterns that we mostly associate with the word archetype are things like the Jungian archetypes and the hero's journey, which somebody in our group just recently said is one of her favorites. And there are several others as well, but those are really the two biggest ones that we tend to use in our Western thinking to kind of make sense of our worlds. And that example that I just gave is really just one way of organizing. There may be 4, there may be 8, there may be 12, there may be many, many more. But in fact, archetypes are really just any way that we create meaning and then kind of pass it along. And they go way back in time. So you don't have to figure out what a certain symbol or meaning is. It's just there. We're all reaching into that same sort of Ethernet out there that creates this sense of meaning for us. And what I've found is really that it's like we're all walking around in our own little bubbles, and we have these sort of preferences and motivations and aversions where sometimes, I really hate being in that kind of situation. And I don't know what to do when, somebody comes in my face this way. And that can be even as deep as a trauma trigger. So we're all in our little bubbles, kind of walking around and kind of bouncing up against each other. And what it's really all about, and I think Ginny said today too, is it's about meaning in connections, which is what we're doing at On Purpose Woman Global Community, right? And what you're doing really even in your own, at your own dining room table. I mean, anytime you interact with people, you're creating meaning and you're reaching into some of those meanings and some of that bubble of meaning that's around each of us. So in order to get more of that to work for us, I think it's really important for us to sort of consider what some of these hidden structures are and to think about it in a way that we can be more empathetic to other people who are in their little bubble. And that is going to unlock fluidity and adaptability because we have awareness. So as soon as you know something, you begin to behave a little bit differently. You can take it in more. So archetypes are really those windows into meaning and connection. And they come at you through metaphor. Like if you say, so I was at a conference yesterday and there were a lot of the Western metaphors, or at least the American metaphors, were all military. Everybody was talking about, getting more tools in your armamentarium, and all the general things. Now I'm not going to be able to repeat what they were because they're not coming into my head. But so those metaphors are also ways into making sense of the structures that are all around us. And then symbols and language, which Mary and Maria were talking about earlier today. Lots of different ways to kind of sort of zoom in on what the archetypes and what the meanings and the symbols are. But here's the paradox. If you get too focused on what your archetypes are or what somebody else's archetypes are, and when you take some of these wonderful, well-developed assessments that are out there, you can get boxed right in. And you can start to expect yourself to behave in a certain way and other people to behave in a certain way. And you can start to be turned away from some boxes that don't seem like they're right for you. So we want to try to avoid that. And the way you do that is start by tapping into your own bubble and practice shifting. And here's another featured member today spoke about being in the be mode instead of the do mode, right? So to shift from do to be, you're going to be able to have more empathy for not only your own, but the other people's sort of bubble systems that are invisible around them. And ways to do that, I actually put one of those upside down on purpose, because that is question those labels that we were talking about. You need to flip them upside down. We can't just automatically accept what people are telling us we are or what we think somebody else is. If we question them and then begin to do some of these other things, we're going to begin to open it up more and have more meaning in connection as the bubbles continue to intersect. So you do that through cultivating your intuition, through cultivating wonder and curiosity. It's so easy. Everybody can do this. All you need to do is sort of look at something in a different way. Look at the negative space around something. Look at a penny on the ground and think about, where that penny traveled until it got to you. Every kind of little thing has an opportunity for one of those windows into the symbols and the metaphors and the meaning. Gently notice your own habits and thoughts. And I put a hand with a feather there. We don't want to grab onto it and shake ourselves by the neck, right? We want to say, oh, look at that. Look what I'm doing. Here it is again. Hello. And then use some of these other ways of tapping into and away from your habitual way of thinking about things. And that would be pick up a book. So the little bubble over there that says creativity, free write, or randomly select, or collage. And the example I was about to give is pick up a book, ask yourself a question, ask whatever the world, the air, a question, and then open to some page randomly and see where your finger lands. And there may be a little clue in there that will trigger your imagination to think of something else. So those kinds of activities will help you pull away from the expected labels and the expected bubbles. And then quizzes, which is what I design for many of my clients, are fundamentally archetypal. So take some quizzes and have some fun. And I'm going to give just a quick example of Ginny's quiz because she's here today. And another person here today in our meeting is Bessie down here with the chakras. So these are three different examples of ways that you can sort of make sense of how your audience, if you're a business, if you're running a business or you're part of a business, your audience is living in a certain world and they may not be aware of how they line up with your system and your ideas of what can help them get from their pain to the outcomes that you're trying to provide. And Ginny's and Bessie's are both examples of, so the one on the top and the one on the bottom are both examples of a sort of a scaled way of looking at the people out there. And you could be down here on one end of the scale, which in Ginny's spotlight quiz is you're kind of backstage. You're not ready to get all the way up on stage. So it's not a bad thing. It's just this is where you're living right now with your attitudes and behaviors. And then you could be in the middle. You could be like an understudy, ready to get out into the spotlight, but not quite sure about it. Or you could be ready to step right into the spotlight. And then the one in the middle is where I took the Jungian archetypes and I did a bunch of research and I sorted people into 4 of them. And I use caution with that because if you're just looking at 4 different ways of preferential thinking and behaving, you could end up thinking that's all I have. And I don't want anybody to ever end up in a corner when they're looking at the way they interact in the world. So take any of these assessments out there with a bit of a grain of salt. So here's Ginny's an example of how Ginny and I used archetypes to build her questions and answers that lead you to understanding where you are in your readiness to join into a big community where you can be in the spotlight. And we took, this is really kind of like the hero's journey right here too. So there's like layers on layers in all of this thinking as you begin to explore. So in Ginny's quiz, we look at some of our beliefs, we look at some of the things that we do and sort of our ways that we have already figured out how to get out into the spotlight. And then we look at the results that we're getting. Are we getting where we want to be? And then the momentum that comes from that, or sort of that would be sort of the transformational part of the journey. And it comes right back around. So it's kind of like a spiral. If you're going up, you're going up. If you're knocking yourself down with your beliefs, you're only going to keep going down as you go around that spiral. So that is basically it. I kept it short today. And you're very welcome to join in with me. And I can put these links in our chat when we come back to our group. And I am so happy to be here today. Thank you so much. And go out there and see if you can see the people around you in a slightly different way for the next 24 hours. That's my challenge.
Thank you, Ellen. If you can stop screen sharing, I'll wrap this up and then we'll take some questions once we stop the recording. So I want everybody to unmute yourselves and let's give a shout out to Ellen so she can hear us clapping and hooting and hollering. So thank you, Ellen.
Ellen.
Great job.
Yay.
I love the research.
Thank you.
And how you explain things. And if you are watching this either live or the replay on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, thank you for watching. If you'd like to join us for one of our many Zoom gatherings a month or some in person in Columbia, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, or Tallahassee, Florida, just comment below, or you can go to my website, opwgc.com, and find out all about our community. Thanks for watching, everyone.